The broadcast is now starting.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Oh my gosh, August is almost done. And welcome to a Hot August webinar. In today's session of Stop, Collaborate, and Listen, create an effective user feedback loop for your digital workspace. Oh, guys, man, I know I say this every month, but we have got an amazing session today. This one has just been one I've been waiting for ever since we started working on this one a couple months ago, and I'm just really excited to see just keep this one out in the open. So thank you so much for being here today. If this is your first webinar with us, thank you. Thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you here. Hope you have a good time. If this is your second, third, 29th and a half webinar that you're joining us for, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us every time. We love having you here. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, on the Instagram, on Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere. Find us to hear all the latest news. We have a lot going on right now. We've been putting out some really great content. You can find us on Twitter at PixelMillTeam. You can also use the hashtag PixelMillWebinars if you want to learn more specifically about our webinars. And just find us on social media. We got a lot of good stuff going on right now. Love to have you there. And if you're wanting to keep track of all of our videos, find us on YouTube, look up PixelMill, hit that subscribe button, and you'll get access to all of our latest content. So there's that. So if you've been following along on social media, you'll know that I mentioned we'd have live music and prizes today. Prizes will happen, not till the end. If you stick around till the end, we've got some pretty fun stuff we're going to do. Live music, I had a plan. My 1-year-old is sleeping. So if you've had a 1-year-old or a child, you know, don't wake him up. Don't wake the beast. So maybe later on that'll happen. Anyway, enough about that silly stuff. A couple quick webinar things. If you have questions or comments, there is a questions tab and a chat tab. Throw those questions up there. I'll be following along the whole time, and I'll try to sneak those questions in as best I can. If for some reason I can't get to them in the moment, we do save a little time at the end for Q&A, so we will get to your questions as best we can and in a timely manner. Okay, enough about that. My name is Michael Wells. I'll be your host, but let's get on to our speaker today. He is a Microsoft Regional Director and MVP and the President and Co-founder of PixelMill, and he lives one town over from me. Eric Overfield, take it away.
Hey. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Am I coming in loud and clear, Michael?
Yes, you are.
All right, perfect. Always got to make sure we're good there. Excellent. Yeah, so again, thank you all for joining us. What's the value here? Why are we here today? Well, what's important here is making sure that our digital workspaces, those things that we have been building or that have been thrust upon us because we all had to go remote and digital recently, how are we going to make sure that those are actually delivering what it is that our end users need? You know, it comes down to listening to them. And if you are joining us at our last webinar last month, or of course you can always get it from our YouTube channel, we talked about adoption of digital workspace and the importance of just listening to people, listening to your end users. Now, in this discussion, we want to talk much more about the user feedback loop. This is not a one-time thing, just talking to users, hey, what do you want? And you go build it and that's it. No. That is a recipe for disaster. So let's go ahead and let's look at that. Let's see what we can do. All right. So let me go ahead and see if this will work. There we go. For those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, again, my name is Eric Overfield, President, Co-founder here at PixelMill, Microsoft Regional Director, Microsoft MVP in the Office Apps and Services space. And I'm a general community supporter and advocate. I absolutely love the community around Microsoft 365 technologies, originally started in SharePoint. That's where my background is. And then like most other people, I had evolved into teams and everything else. And I've really enjoyed that. If you ever want to get a hold of me directly, if you can just remember my name, at Eric Overfield or ericoverfield.com, you will find me. If you want to learn more about PixelMill, we definitely encourage you to. So we're based out in Northern California. And effectively what we're doing for our clients is we're building aspects of digital workspaces on top of the Microsoft 365 platform. That's often around SharePoint portals, SharePoint solutions, digital tools that help you and your team and your organization be more productive. That's what we want to do. You can always find us at pixelmill.com, at PixelMillTeam. And don't forget also about our YouTube channel that you can subscribe there and always get updated on all of our latest videos that we're doing. And we've got some new things in the work where we want to provide some new ideas and new concepts, what's happening in the digital workspace. But of course, there's always the PixelMill webinar series as well, where always free. And you've got years of our recordings you can go back to and listen to. And we really hope that you find some good value there to help you and your organization move forward. All right, so the importance of here, like, what is it that I want you to get out of the next hour that we're going to be talking here? Because of course I appreciate your time. I know we're all really super busy, and I want to make sure that you walk away with some really concrete steps to move forward. So really, what's to me important is in digital workspaces, you want to be always driving and increasing the adoption of what you're building. That's going to prove the ROI to your organization. That's going to basically say, here's why we're building these tools, and because we're getting the adoption that we're looking for. People are using the tools, and kind of anecdotally, your tools are working if you see adoption go up. Users, your fellow workers, they're very good at finding things that will help them do their job, and if something doesn't help them do their job, they're moving on. They'll find something else. If you see that utilization go up, then it definitely does better. The solutions that we have found to be most successful are those that are optimized to the people. When you take a digital workspace or digital tool within a digital workspace and you make it work for the user, you optimize it for them, success there. If you're going to try to shoehorn people into the new digital tools that you're going to force them to work with, that adoption is not going to probably be where you want. They may use part of it, but you might start to see that dreaded shadow IT crop in. As soon as a quote better tool is there for them, they're gone. They're going to go to that other tool. So we really want to make sure that we're building solutions that are optimized to people. So empathetic solutions that are empathetic towards the end users, are meeting the user's needs. We're listening to them. We're building those tools that are optimized to them, and the empathetic solution is in fact going to meet their needs. And this all happens when you listen to them. And not only when you listen to them, but when you create a feedback loop so that you're listening to your end users and you're providing the mechanisms necessary for them to be able to continue to help you refine the solutions so that you continue to meet their needs. And why is that? Because the longevity of your platform, the engagement that you're going to get, the longevity of people using your solutions, that's all going to be dependent upon if your solutions that you build in the digital workspace, the digital tools that you're providing, are in fact evolving with them and are evergreen. This is not SharePoint 2010 where you would build a solution and you would hope for 3 years it would work fine and you didn't worry about it. No. The digital workspaces that we find ourselves in now are evolving. I like to say on a daily or weekly basis. I mean, the updates that we're seeing coming out of Microsoft are insane. It is very hard to keep up. Fortunately, a lot of those changes are they're smaller changes, or they're feature changes we've been looking for. The like big monumental steps are a little more measured, which is a good thing because you only can take so much change in any given organization. So how are we going to deal with this topic over the next over the session here? So this is all to me about this feedback loop. We want to build a solution, build a feature set, build a concept of getting feedback from our users in multiple steps of our evergreen solution. Evergreen, of course, always changing, always evolving, never stopping, always growing. So how do we constantly request, acquire, utilize, and provide our own feedback back to those that have given us feedback? So what we want to do is discovering like what's required, what kind of feedback would you be looking for. I want to give you concrete steps as to different plans, like why you would want feedback there. If maybe you need to go to project sponsors and tell them, hey, this is going to take longer than you've asked because we want to be able to talk to our end users at these different phases, and here's why, and here's the value of that, and here's the tools we want to use to collect it. Concrete steps. Really want to go over what can you take away today, start utilizing this afternoon, whenever it is you can get to this, or after the moment you're after listening to this webinar, if you listen to the recording, that you can take and do something right away. So within building the digital workspace, there's like 3 phases that we'll be looking at, and we'll look through each of them of the why and the how you're going to be looking to get feedback and creating a feedback loop. That's the planning phase, the designing phase, the developing deployment phase. And then also on the evergreen aspect, I also want to look at 2 more components, and that would be around the training and the update. So that's the plan. I think it's a good idea. I think that we can get a lot out of this, and I really hope that you find some value here. Okay, so the last session that we dealt with listening to to our users and why that was so valuable, and what we saw there that would help us increase that user adoption was ensuring that we built solutions that met their specific needs. We wanted to help create a sense of ownership of all of the users of your organization within the digital tools that you provided from the inception of having these tools. We mentioned just creating a feedback loop throughout the process. And that's what this whole hour is about, is looking at how we can build those feedback loops at all these different phases. And we saw this as it was a two-way street. It's not just you receiving feedback from them and never giving feedback to people, or never letting them know that their feedback mattered and why it mattered and how it changes the solution. It's like one of the worst things I think you can almost do is provide some feedback and mechanisms and ask people for their help and assistance, and you just ignore it and they don't know why. Because what that's going to do is it's going to kind of reinforce people's mind of, it doesn't matter. My organization is too big. They don't listen to me. And you don't want that. You can at least provide feedback of, thanks for the feedback. We're looking into that, and or we're not able to do that because of this, or thank you for that feedback. That's great. Here's how to do what you're looking to do in the tools that we provided. Basically, you're trying to say, we're not going to do what you asked, but here's the way that we've approached solving that particular problem. You really want to get a dialogue going. The more people are able to work with you on helping you understand what their needs are, the better the tools can be, and the more engaged they're going to be, and you're helping them do the job. The digital workspace is there to help people do their job. That's it. It's not there to make you look good. It's not make there to Pixel look good as this great project we helped you build. That's not the point. The point is for your end users, your fellow workers, to be able to do their job. And this whole process is going to show that you care. And I hope you do. I mean, I understand a lot of us have jobs, and one of them is to build a digital workspace. But having pride in your job, I think, is super important. And personally, I look at digital workspaces and just go that I love my job. I love helping build digital workspaces because they need something. They help people do their job, and that's a good thing because we all have jobs. We all have work to do. So let's try to make it as successful as possible. All right, so let's just dive right in then. So let's start at the first phase. Typically, this is the first phase on any digital workspace you build, and that's around the planning stage. So why would you ever want to collect feedback during the planning phase? I hope this is obvious, but it's not always. A lot of times people plan to kind of more in a bubble. We're going to build a digital workspace. Here's the tool we're going to build, and here you go. Boss said we needed an intranet. We're going to build an intranet. No. You want to talk to the end users, the people that are going to be using your solution. In fact, I would say you would really want to talk to everybody involved in the digital workspace, which normally for a larger digital workspace, that's everybody. Now, if you're using a specific tool for a specific team, you may only be talking to them, but for a general digital workspace, you want to be talking to whoever gave you the directive to go do this. Maybe it's your senior leadership or a CIO or a CTO. You want to talk to any other project sponsors, the people that are involved in the project for sure, and then as many of the end users, department heads, business units that you have, et cetera. You want to talk to those people so you can understand what their need is. What is it that what is it that they really could use out of a digital workspace? And the one question you don't want to ask is, what do you want? No one knows that. That's not the point. So we'll look at how to get some better questions out there. And what you're trying to do here is also build this like success criteria during this planning stage right at the beginning. You're using this feedback to determine what is success. You start hearing what are some of the pain points are. You start hearing what people are, what kind of tools people could use that would help them do their job. And you can start building some sort of criteria for what is success of this project. Is it utilization of a certain old legacy platform goes down? Is it utilization of the new platform goes up? Is often things such as the amount of emails goes down because you don't want people just sending emails because that's really archaic and doesn't provide a good collaborative experience. And you want to see Teams messages go up. Maybe you're seeing the SharePoint page utilization go up. People are reading the news that you're producing, things like that. Start figuring that out during this planning stage as to what's going to be success. So what you would be collecting here, though, things such as the current processes that your organization is using, and what you're looking here is the successes and failures. And you're doing this not necessarily by just saying, show what tools you use and what's working. You're going to be working more with questions such as, show me what it is that you do in a given day. What tools do you use? And you would want to just watch them use it, and you'll start to see the pain points, and or say, hey, so I need you to reach out to your department and do something. How would you do that? And you'd watch them see how things currently work, and they'll most likely you'll start seeing users start to say, oh, yeah, I've got to do this archaic process, and I have to do this, that, and the other, and I really want a tool to do that. That's what you're looking for. Those are the kind of answers that are super cool. You're starting to try to pull together some of the common issues that you're starting to see across different organizations, groups, teams that are collaborating, business units, et cetera, so that you can start to maybe ask more refined questions that says, I see that almost every department does they want to be able to submit news to the organization as well as internally. Great, that's a really cool thing that you can start to use. And you can start to prescribe some solutions here. Also think through the different types of roles that within your organization. Many of you work with large organizations, 5, 10, 20, 50,000 employees. You've got your frontline workers, you've got your factory workers, you've got the people that are doing the manufacturing maybe. You've also then got your the corporate office folk, or you've got a lot of remote users, it's particular now, a lot more remote users. And each of these groups often have very different needs. They have very different ways that they'll be able to access digital tools, and they have different requirements of why they need a digital workspace. So really do your best to pull this information out of them. And the ways you're going to do this, like the most successful ways that we've definitely found, the low-hanging fruit, the way to really blanket a lot of people are through surveys. And I'm actually show you sort of a demo there shortly, so you can see a form, a similar form that we use when we work with our clients, so that you can grab some ideas of how we ask questions, and maybe that will help you ask what I think are more pertinent questions to organizations. The other side of that, because surveys are easy. They're easy to create, especially with something like Microsoft Forms. You can get some questions out. You can blanket a very large group of people. You can send it out to BUs, business units. You can send it out to divisions. You can send it out to the whole organization, whatever. And you could solicit that feedback and get a nice graph from it or something. Start to pull data out. Another great way, though, are those interviews, those one-on-one interviews. Okay, now this one could be tricky, and it can be more tricky in a feedback loop mechanism, because constantly talking to people and asking them again and again for more information directly can be time-consuming for you and for them. So now you've got to find the people who you're going to talk to. You need to be able to schedule that time with them to ask them these questions, to work with them. Some really successful times, though, are when you can go spend an hour with them in their cubicle. But nowadays it would be probably more remote, where it might be screen sharing, and say, what are common tasks that you do in the given day? What are the things that you're measured on in your job, and how do you do those jobs? And you just watch them, and you start taking notes as to what is it that they're doing, so that you can start to see where their pain points are. And you can be asking, you'll almost always, you'll find people start to tell you, hey, this is what doesn't work well for me. If you look at something kind of in between surveys and user groups, like focus groups are also very useful. This is where you're pulling multiple people together. In a remote environment, you can do this as well. I find that in a remote environment, more than 5 or 7 voices can get a little too much, because it can be very difficult to hear a lot of people. Whereas in a room where you've got maybe 10 or 15, I found that to be a little more successful when you're in person, because people are able to, they're a little more focused, and they're going to be, it'll be easier to get the visual cues from people. That being said, I've seen remote conversations work very well with a lot of people. It depends on the organization. But focus groups can be very useful, because you can get a lot of voices all at once. You can get a more broad representation of a type of user potentially. And you can get a lot of feedback quicker, but you still have to coordinate it, work maybe with a department head or a division head, a business unit head, to help you find the people that you would speak to. So it's similar to the user interviews. But you can get a lot of feedback through these mechanisms. There's of course more, but these are sort of the higher level, the easy ways that you would get some feedback during the planning phase from people. Some other approaches that I definitely like, that's kind of a little step past this, is creating some groups of people that will start using the technology tools that you might be giving giving to them. And during the planning phase is a great time to start this. The two that I like to look at are the champions. So champions are often your people that are not a part of your team directly normally, that would be building your digital workspace. Often these are not your specifically technical people. Often your champions are not, say, your IT folk. These are people that might love technology, but they're not technologists by trade. That's not where their job focus might not be technology, but they love technology. They like new things. They like the latest social media thing, and they would like to see the new tools, the digital workspace. These are the people also that they kind of get it. They'll be excited. Often these will come to you. These are the people that love the tools. They want to use them, and they want to show all of the people around them, hey, look, I can do my job so much easier than using this tool. You should use a tool. Our department should use it. I'll be so much more productive. Those people you want to empower. And if you could find them during the planning phase, they will help you get more voices back into your process, and they can help you provide that continual feedback loop. Also look at creating some pilot groups. So your pilot group, they're not necessarily champions. They can be, or they might be led by a champion. But your pilot groups, these are the a collection of people, 3, 5, 10, 20 people, maybe a division or department or a specific business unit or a specific group that's going to be going and doing something. So let's say you have to build a digital workspace component for a marketing team that has to put together conferences. You might find a specific group in marketing that really loves some new tools. They want to try something out. You'll make them a pilot and say, all right, we're going to create a new digital workspace for you, or digital workspace subset, to help you put together your next conference. You know, you're looking for a group that, great, like they want to do that. They can help you figure out what the right tools for your organization and the right way to use them. And if you get them during the planning phase, they can help you through the entire process, because you can constantly be soliciting more feedback from them, taking that feedback, acting upon it, giving them feedback so they know exactly what's happening, and you don't have to try to work with your entire organization. All of this feedback, this is what's going to help you build that success plan. This is all that business requirements that you need to gather. This feedback is what's going to drive that documentation, that idea, that thing that you're going to do. Okay, so before I get to my demo, we can tell that I have lots to say, good or bad. I hope you enjoy that. If you have questions, please do ask them in there's a little chat channel. It should be kind of over there, I think, on your screen. And Michael will help interrupt me if you've got questions that are pertinent to like what we're talking about. If they're more general, broad questions, we'll get to them at the end. We'll do everything we can to get to them to the end. To me, the value of why you're here right now is to ask questions. So please, please, please don't hesitate to ask questions. I would love to get derailed with some good questions around these topics. Okay, so in the meantime, though, I'm going to go into one of the things that we like to do during planning, which is we're building surveys. So a really easy way to do this is to use Microsoft Forms. Effectively, you're looking at a free solution, requires no dev talent. You basically can just create a form and submit it out to your users or people you want to talk to and say, hey, help us out. So I want to go through just a few kind of quick questions here. One of the things you'll notice in our form is we don't care who you specifically are. I believe strongly that you don't really need people's names here because you want them to just be open, and you don't want to have to come back to them. I mean, it's just, that's not as normally as important. Definitely to know where they come from or what department they're in or what kind of user that might be helpful. If you want to ask their name, great. You know, if you want to provide an option, like, you know, if you'd like feedback directly from us, tell us who you are. Great thing, but we typically don't, because the specific person is rarely important here. We want the honest feedback from people, and you know, we all trust our fellow workers. So these are the kind of questions we might ask is, you know, how useful might these tools be? How do you find these tools useful? And we would then look at like a 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 scale. Anything over, to me, 7 different options. Wait, people don't know, like 1 to 10, 1 to 9. I don't know. Often 3 or 5. You know, is it terrible, okay, great, or sort of that 5 level of really bad, mostly bad, okay, neutral, it's good, or it's awesome. 5 options people definitely can deal with. Yeah, how many times do you use these tools, or how many hours do you spend per week on these different types of tasks? We're never asking here, what do you need? We're trying to find out what you're doing, and that's going to help us figure out what kind of tools to build for you. Don't worry, we're going to work with these people to help them build solutions. We're not just going to now prescribe a solution to them. That's the idea of this feedback loop. We're going to work with them throughout the process to really ensure that we're defining the right solution. What are some other good ones? So, you know, the level of agreement that you have on these following statements. I would find Teams to be useful on my job. Maybe people don't know, but you might see the people say completely agree. Most likely that means they've used Teams. Maybe that's a good thing that you should be rolling out to your organization in a greater sense. So a Microsoft form, some other survey tool you might be using, these are easy ways to get a broad overview from your organization of what your organization thinks about things, and that will help you define what it is that you're going to look to build. All right. So the next typical, something else on planning that I really want you to think about is how are you going to be tracking the success? We talked about this a couple of times. So I want you to start thinking here about the metrics that you're going to be using, maybe like search scopes that you might have within in SharePoint, if you're looking to use SharePoint as a backend portal or something. Because the thing is metrics themselves, we find that they're this intrinsic feedback mechanism. You're going to know how your tool is doing, and it's going to be a continual loop of information. As you roll out new things, you're going to be wanting to build, you're going to be wanting to have tools in place to be able to track metrics, to be able to then utilize that to say, hey, that worked. That helped increase utilization or something like that. And that will all happen, to me. It should start in the planning, because that's a part of that success matrix. So the next big stage we might be looking at is designing. Now, designing here could be looked at multiple ideas, multiple ways. You could think of like graphically designing, wireframe designing, mock-up designing, but I'm also thinking here sort of solution designing, almost going into like solution architecture, but not development deployment. That's going to be that next stage, and we'll get to that. So the value here of collecting feedback during this phase, and as you come back to this phase, as you design new things, to continually be asking feedback, is it helps your users, again, feel heard. So you went to your user base in the beginning, that first phase, you talked to them and they gave you this feedback, and now you're trying to deliver a solution for them, like you're trying to design a solution for them, excuse me. If you go back to them and say, we heard you, you showed these pain points, these are the ways we're looking to solve them, get their feedback on it. Not, again, you don't really want to ask, do you like it? It's use the tool. Ask them specific, you can be wanting to ask them more, such as we built this tool, how would you use it to solve the job or something? Or what is it that you can do with this? And you start to watch them give you more specific feedback around the solution you build. Anyhow, though, so collecting feedback during design is going to help you it'll help you validate what it is that you have been prescribing. So you heard this from planning, you're trying to prescribe a tool, you want that validation before you go into development, because developing, even if you're using all out of the box tools, it still takes time to develop. Typically designing is going to be quicker to iterate through solution ideas, concepts, graphical concepts, solution architecture concepts. It's easier during the designing phase to iterate through and see if this is actually going to solve the proposed solution that you're looking to do. So the ways that we would look about collecting this feedback through the design phase, one of the big things here that I want you to think about is be open to any kind of feedback that is provided to you during the design phase. So to me, what happens here is during the planning stage, you might not, or you shouldn't really have had a necessary solution in mind for whatever it is you were looking to build, a holistic digital workspace or specific tool or specific collections of tools, etc. But when you start designing, you start kind of putting a box around what the solution is that you're going to be able to deliver to your organization. And if you shut down feedback, if you don't allow people to provide their really true, honest feedback, it really causes a problem. And almost every time I've started when I ask for feedback on a design or a concept that we have, almost always we get someone who has an idea that, or some feedback that just, in a sense, came out of left field. It was not what we expected. They didn't ask the question that we had asked the way we asked it. They answered the question they heard from us, which was really valuable, because almost always it's a valid answer. It's just, wow, that's super cool. Thank you. So if you put people in too much of a box and you shut down feedback, that can really lead to a disaster here. You really want to be open to feedback. Now, I mean, if it's totally left field, you say, here's this design, does it work? And they talk about something completely different. Nah, that's a different kind of feedback. Also, though, when you're asking for feedback, define what it is you're looking for. Here's what here's the solution. Would you please add comments here? In particular, we're looking for feedback around the navigation structure at this point in the proposed portal that we're looking to build, so that you really help people understand what it is you're looking for, especially if you go back to them iteratively, which you should. Just constantly throwing things at people and asking for any kind of feedback might be too overwhelming for people. They don't know what they're testing. They'll give you feedback that you weren't necessarily looking for and you weren't ready for yet. It might be valuable information, but they're giving you feedback on a solution you hadn't fully baked yet. So it's not valid feedback, because you're not. It's going to change. Feedback is great, but don't waste people's time as well. Let them know why you're looking to do this, ask for this feedback. If we have this new navigation structure in this portal, we want to ensure that it helps you get to what it is you're looking to get to. And so here's what we're looking to do. Having tools for feedback and having a mechanism is going to be super important during the design phase. Just getting emails from people, post-it notes, this is not really a good plan. Having a better tool to help collect the feedback might be useful. And I've got a demo here I'm going to show you shortly on ways we solicit feedback in one specific way of the designing phase. Also, it's really useful to limit the number of choices you're giving to your users when you're asking them for the feedback during the design phase, really through any phase. But in designing, often you're going to be looking for A or B. Even if you have A, B, or C, or D, it can be difficult for users to, when they have too much, it's just too much. A classic example for me, totally not related, is I have a 2-year-old son. We go down into the pantry in the morning. What would you like to eat for breakfast? And if he sees everything in front of him, he doesn't know. He'll just like kind of go straight to the cookies or something. But if instead I go to him and say, would you like this or this? All the rest is off limits. It's easy. Okay, I want that one. Perfect. That helps you be a little more respectful of everybody's time, and it just helps get you some more specific feedback as to what you can do right now, and it helps people, because often with too many design decisions or too many requests for people, it's overwhelming and it's just too much. All right, so let's go ahead and let's look at a feedback mechanism that we use. Okay, let's go back to this. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one. This one. Perfect. So what you're looking at here is we use a tool called Envision, and some of you I know have worked with us before. You've seen this, and you can see more of like why we did what we did. But for those of you who are new to this, it's an app that we use. It's something we subscribe to called Envision. There are a lot of tools that can do this online, and you might have your own. But what you're looking at looks like a web page. It looks like a portal, correct? But it's not. It's a design of a web page. This is actually just a graphic image that has been uploaded into this application. What's really cool though is, if I can do this properly, it has these clickable regions in it. And so what you can do is you can start to ask for feedback for people of, well, how does this look? You know, if this was a proposed solution, you can go to someone and say, work with the top menu, and how would you go ahead and search for something? Excellent. You could then, you know, they could then see if people find the icons you're looking for, and you can start to solicit that feedback from them. Now, what's really also important about a tool like this, in my opinion, is to be able to get feedback from people offline. In a sense, I mean, this is an online tool, but where you don't need to be there. And a tool such as Envision, and I'm not trying to get you to buy Envision. It's not. If you want to, by all means, we're not partners with them or anything. It's just a tool. But I do like this solution a lot. You can always, a tool such as this can have something like comments. So someone can add a comment, they can put this comment and say over here on search, search is, if I can spell, search is very useful. So they can provide you these inline comments, and these can be just posted into the system, and now your design team or whoever's using this can now quickly be able to get the feedback specific to the feature that that end user might have been looking at, rather than just saying, well, you know, I didn't like that color in the header. Well, what color? But if someone is able to click on this and say, I don't like the color, I don't like this color, you would know exactly, if I can spell it, they would know exactly what it is that you would know exactly what it is that they're talking about. So lots of ways that you can solicit feedback during the design phase. And of course, this is just one piece of design. I skipped wireframing and I skipped some of the solution architecture, but hopefully you can see here, you want to be able to collect feedback, ideally in line. And ideally you want something that can provide a two-way street. A tool such as this, you can reply to a reply so that people can kind of get comments to their comments, so they can start to understand your thinking, as well as you can, you know, if you have questions to them, you can get back to them and say, well, what do you think about this? Things like that. There's so much you can do here. Now, I did actually, I in the previous demo, I wanted to talk about something such as analytics that that's available in Microsoft 365. That's a part of the planning stage when you're thinking about metrics. Knowing what's available in your usage reports will be very helpful. Now you can see this is a super utilized demo tenant. But you could start to look at things such as, you know, what's email activity or what's Teams activity, at OneDrive files, SharePoint files. You can start to build metrics off of this, saying, all right, well, we want email activity over the last 3 months. We've been seeing 1 million emails being sent. We want those emails to drop by 10%, and we want to see Teams activity go up by 20%. Those are metrics you can start to hit and start to meet. You can work with your project sponsors and work with that. If you need more metrics, of course, there's other tools, the third-party tools you can use. You can build your own tools. There's something called the Application Insights over in Azure. There's ways that you can get more, but you know, it can get a little more complex. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to our deck. Okay, so the next big phase that we've got here would be the development phase. So after design phase, we're going to need to get yet more content, more feedback, right? So we went through planning, we got feedback from our users, we were creating the loop with them so we can constantly iterate with them. Through then the design phase, we can go back to them in that feedback loop, asking for more feedback, more information. making sure that our tools are ready to, the tools that we're proposing are looking to solve their specific use cases and requirements. And so now we get into the development phase. We're actually going to now implement this. Now, that's not to say that this has to be custom code. It's just we're now going to be implementing the solution more holistically and more fully in the digital workspace tools that we're going to be looking to build here. So the value of collecting feedback here, before we go on to other phases, is we're ensuring that the solutions that we are in fact building are meeting the needs, which of course it's the same thing in design, but getting the feedback before we go live with this, working with those champions, working with those pilot groups, going to specific users and saying, all right, we built this tool, it's over in this preview area, would you go ahead and go test it out? Would you work with me on it? Does this, are you able to, one of the requirements you had was, in your job is to do this. We're building you a tool to help you do that. Would you use this tool for a week to help you do the job? What's that process like for you? And start to get that feedback from them. So you can start to see, well, this tool, do you think this solution, this approach that you're looking to solve with your digital workspace, will it solve the need of the larger organization? It's very helpful to specify the specific features you're looking for people to test, especially something around Teams or something like SharePoint, or if you can use Planner. Work with the specific users. Hey, there's this preview area. We created a new navigation structure. We've got our current portal. It has this navigation structure. You can go look at it at pixelmill.sharepoint.com. But hey, would you please go to pixelmill.sharepoint.com/site/preview, and from there, would you check out that navigation? Does it help you? And you said these are the problems you had. How does this work for you to find those? Or could you use the navigation to solve these 3 requests that I have for you? And if you can watch them do that or get their feedback on how was it compared to the new navigation base, the old navigation, for them to do their job. How is it easy to solve the needs that they helped you uncover? That way you're able to make their goals. You're also able to make their expectations, because probably through planning and design, they're telling you, hey, here's these problems that I have, or they're conveying these through other words possibly, and they're looking to be able to get anywhere in your portal in 2 clicks. They're looking, they really need to be able to search for documents, and they expect on the portal to be able to search for documents with less than 2 clicks. Like, they should just be able to always be able to click one thing that's on every page, and you want to be able to see, does the solution you're proposing that you've been out developing, does it meet their needs? And that will help you ensure that you've been delivering everyone else's needs. So then the ways to collect feedback are, again, very similar to what we did before, but potentially using different kind of tools. One of the things I really want you to think about, though, is during development, you're most likely going to have more specific tasks that are going to also be often tasks or bugs related. So people will be like, I developed something, it didn't work, and so a bug might be issued. So you might have some sort of issue tracker, and you really want your feedback to help feed into that, ideally with some 2-way information flow, so that when someone says, I have a problem, they might not be part of your deployment development team, but you want to be able to communicate back to them so that they know that they're being listened to. It really helps when you're empathetic towards what people's needs are, and you're saying, I'm hearing you, I understand what you're saying, and here's what we're doing about it. And often that might be, we can't do anything about it, or your idea is I understand what your problem is. I understand you want to use this tool. Our organization can't. We have this other tool, and here's the tool, and here's how you can do it to do your job, and help them figure out how to make that tool work for them, for their specific job. But you want to talk to anything from stakeholders down to end users to test these solutions as much as possible. As many people as you can often, but sometimes, it's just a few, to validate that these things are working the way they're expected to. Things that you want them to be considering is, does this feature solve their needs? Now, it's not asking them, does this work for you, is not necessarily a good question, but helping prompt them with, these are the tasks that we're looking to do. These are the tasks that were highlighted as big boulders that need to be solved and be moved. Can you solve that with this solution? And see what they do. The more that you're able to work with them to get them to uncover how to do it with the tool you provided, the better, rather than having to tell them exactly, I need you to click here, 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 and here. Okay, did that solve your need? The problem with that is, although training is going to be our next issue we're going to talk about, it can be more difficult to get to the to get all that information out to people quick enough before they just get frustrated, you want your features to be intuitive. You want this new solutions you're building to make sense. Now, that doesn't mean people are going to know necessarily they need to use Planner to do all of their project management in your organization. That might have to be communicated a little more clearly, like our new tool is Planner. But you would want Planner to be obvious once you kind of know certain first steps, that this is how I'm going to get to it, and this is the way that we're going to use it within our organization, or this is the way that we're going to be adding planners within teams, within a team tab when teams are created, or every time a new team is created within Microsoft Teams and channels are created for a certain type of team, that there will always be a planner tab there. Does it make sense how it was named? Is it intuitive that if you know it's supposed to be there, that it is actually working the way it's supposed to be working? So these are the kind of things that I want you to be considering, because what this is also going to allow people to do is point out any of the gaps that might exist, things that you didn't think about that maybe slipped through, that slipped through the process, it slipped through design. But now that people are touching things and they can actually maybe work with live data, work with their specific use cases for live, but like for real, they can start to see, well, that this is missing this thing, or I really love the new solution you provided in Teams, but it's missing this tab because every time I have to add this other tab. And so, you want to capture that. And so, okay, and that goes back to one of the first things I said here on developing is that feedback mechanism that you have ideally is two-way, but it is tied directly in with the workflow that the flow of work that your developers, your implementation team is using. The more steps you have to get an issue or a feedback or an item during development from the end user back to your implementers, your administrators, your developers, the more likely things are to slip through the cracks. So not something that I really want to see you do. So the thought there then is one of the easy ways to do this now in SharePoint itself is, well, it's actually not SharePoint, is to use Microsoft Lists. So let me do a quick little demo here. So what you're looking at here is we created a simple site here with, well, it's Microsoft Lists. We didn't actually create a site, but we created a simple issue tracker list that we could then open up to people to say that, tell us about the issue that you found, and you can have people fill that information out and say, here's what it is and here's what's going on, and they can create that new issue, and then internally your development team, your implementation team can start to set things such as priority. You can set status. You can who's it been assigned to. You start to look at how old things are. All this extra information. Now, Microsoft Lists are very related to SharePoint lists because they're basically developed by the same team. But the Microsoft Lists is the next generation of general lists, and they don't have to be tied to SharePoint. They can be an independent thing. So they're a lot easier to set up in a sense and open up to everybody, or to open up to groups of people in your organization, so that you can track issues that come in. I mean, you could use this during other phases, but what I like about during the development phase is that it's more of an issue tracker rather than soliciting feedback on the first or second phase. During development, often there are issues that are being risen rather than feedback, as in what is it that you need, because you're beyond that. You've prescribed solutions. You're now asking, you're trying to seek out, did the solution you built for them, is it working? Is actually going to do what you need? And even post deployment, once you go into deployment, this is a continued issue tracker that people can say, you've been live for 3 months, the solution's out there. People can come back and say, I'm missing this thing, or this broke, or this isn't working for me still because I need this, or it's still too many clicks, or a classic one with SharePoint, I still can't find what I'm looking for. Maybe the portal is not, the architecture is not conductive for your organization, or maybe the search just isn't configured properly, so people can't find what they want. You want this ongoing mechanism where people can provide you feedback, development, post-development, deployment, where you can also then give them feedback so they can get an idea of where their issue is. This is one of those other disasters that could happen is someone submits an issue, they have no idea what happened to it. They cannot see that the issue has been submitted. They have no idea if it's been touched or looked at. It's very frustrating, and I can tell you that my experience is after 1 or 2 issues are submitted by someone, if they don't see anything, they don't hear anything, they're not going to submit an issue again. They're not going to waste their time on you because you obviously don't care about them. And these are not the kind of things that are going to be conductive and productive for a digital workspace. All right. So post-deployment, when people are ready to go live here, or things have gone live, it's important to provide training to people. Even the most intuitive solution typically is going to need some sort of help. And in particular, digital workspaces, they can seem intuitive once you've been using them. It makes sense that we're going to be using Teams for communication collaboration. Okay, and if you use Teams for a little while, I think it starts to make sense. Teams, channels, tabs, etc. People that are new to it, they have no idea. I've seen this too many times. No idea how to use it, don't know where to put things, don't know how to find things. It's confusing. I get that. There's just an onboarding process. You always want to provide training. The thing is training material, it's only going to be as good as what you might know at that specific time. And also a lot of time training requires content, which is painful to build. And a lot of organizations just don't have the resources to put a lot of weight into training. So one of the things that is really important during training is that not only do you provide lots of ways for people to get training, such as webinars, such as just videos, such as written components, also having things such as like office hours or training sessions where every month it's not just office hours, but we're going to provide 20 minutes of training of a feature, plus we're going to have feedback and it'll be recorded so that you can consume it later. We'll have hands-on demos, videos of hands-on demos, etc. It's getting feedback from that because you want to know how it's going. So anytime you're providing any kind of training, you want to solicit feedback. Did you find this training helpful or not? Yes or no? I'm sure a lot of you see that on websites often. They're like support channels for product companies and stuff, etc. They'll just ask, was this helpful or not? That's useful information, because if you start seeing a lot of no's, you missed the mark. And that's super important to know, because you don't know what you don't know on providing training materials. Training itself is an ongoing process. This is not going to be a one-time thing with digital workspace. It's not, okay, here's the training material, you're set. No, there's going to be new tools, new features, new abilities. There's going to be new things that are going to happen that you're going to have to take into account, and your training should evolve with you in your digital workspace. So again, we talked about requesting feedback at any time during the training process, on any type of channel, on training. So some easy ways to do this would be just feedback forms. At the end of a training piece, just asking people for, send them off to a Microsoft form. Was this helpful or not? You can simple surveys, asking them for feedback, open comments, basically any kind of training material provided, article, a video, you're looking to get feedback of, did this hit the mark or not? And if you can coax more information out of people, or if you're able to say, hey, can we reach you again? Are you okay with us reaching out to you? Because you don't want to just inundate people, even during your organization, just dropping in on people saying, hey, you provide this feedback. What are you talking about? We put all this time into it. That people might not want that, so they don't want you to. They'll give you the feedback. They just want to leave it at that. Other people might be interested, where if they said that this training material didn't work for me for this reason, but you have follow-up questions, you'd want to ask them, is it okay if I reach out to you again? Because you can go back to them and say, great, what didn't work for you? How could we do a better job of providing training so that you could use that digital workspace more successfully? And then, of course, use this. If you're going to ask for the feedback, you're going to want to use this information, especially if you're asking for more detailed information than was this helpful or not, is providing feedback to the people that provided that feedback. Even if it's a thank you, that definitely helps. But working with them on making the training better so that they can see, again, that you're listening to them, that the feedback actually matters, I think is just super, super, super important. And then as this continues to evolve, look to expand your training delivery methods. So some low-hanging fruit, I'm going to get to one really shortly, is building a SharePoint portal using a template that Microsoft provided called Learning Pathways that you can download and utilize in your tenant within basically minutes. Is really powerful and super useful, and then you can build upon that. So you can have a simple web page or website. You can start to add some general content on things, and then you can start to add more features onto that. Maybe start adding recordings, or as you start having office hours, you can record those office hours. If you use Stream to do that, you can have the transcripts of them, you can share them more openly, you can then make them more searchable, so it's easier to find discussions where people had these kind of questions. You can start to have, you can start to post your Stream videos into the Learning Pathway site or your training site with some key tags to say, hey, here's the 5 questions that were asked during this office hours in case people have these. And you can start building your training repertoire more organically, which oftentimes is more budget friendly, because let's face it, again, we only have so much budget we often on a lot of these projects. So by building things organically, taking the feedback people have and building more material that they need, asking the simple question of what training were you looking for that we don't provide. That way you don't have to waste your time on building something that too small of your organization is going to be utilizing or caring about, but maybe there's a big boulder that 90% of your organization, a tool they use all the time, and there's no training on it. You just didn't think about it, or you didn't realize people didn't know how to use the tool. Allowing people to tell you, hey, what is it that the tool, I need more training on this tool, and providing them the mechanism, because if you require them to know how to get you email, because they are know how to get you a response because they know who to email, that's a real problem. It can really slow things down. Okay, so the quick little demo I wanted to show you here was this Learning Pathway site. So this is a feature that Microsoft released that is available to all of you. If you're on Microsoft 365, you can download and utilize this in minutes. The easy way to find this, because I don't have a link offhand, but we'll put it in the show notes, is to just Google Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. And this whole thing really just called Learning Pathways. It's this on-demand custom training from Microsoft that's delivered in your tenant, where it's pulling information back from Microsoft. It is just so cool. This is a no-brainer. Everyone on this call that's listening in, if you don't have this, just go get it. Go get it now. It will start to play with it and see what it does. You might not roll it out to your organization. I get that. You may just turn it off so no one else can see it, but to me, it's just a no-brainer. What you get is a communication site with some stuff built in, a lot of content already built in. You've already got some training. So let's just say we want to learn more about Microsoft Teams because we're using that. This is what you're seeing. This is all included. So look at all of this end user training. This training material is available for how to utilize Microsoft Teams. I mean, this is so cool. And it's did I mention it's free? Really useful. You could. And in the past we had to do this. We'd go to docs.microsoft.com, or we would lift a lot of content and have to rebuild all this in our site. And I know a lot of you probably still do this, but utilizing something as Learning Pathways to get started and building the portal for you, this learning portal communication site for you, where you've got a place that you can now own because you now control this. This is your site. You can start to add more pages, add your own content. If you don't like this navigation, great, no worries. If you have other tools, if you want to talk about how to get started with Salesforce, cool. You add your own content, you can add your own pages all in here. It's a great way to provide training for your end users. And then you would want to provide them, you'll have to extend this a little bit, you'll want to provide a way to allow people to then provide you feedback as to how these solutions work for them. All right, so that is Learning Pathways. So the last component I really want to talk to you about is on the staying relevant. It's the process. So we talked about this a couple times. Digital workspaces themselves, these are not static. These are ever evolving. The good ones in particular are going to be evolving, and really, you're going to be forced into it because if you're not on the cloud, you're going to be moving to the cloud. You're going to have pieces on the cloud. I'm hearing a lot less resistance from that, even from the regulated industries that said, we'll never move to the cloud. No, they are. They're starting to move aspects to the cloud. It just makes too much sense. Those tools are going to change on you, period. So not only do you want some sort of agile approach to be able to work with this, to be able to work with these things, to be able to continue to plan, to design, develop, deploy, review, design some more, and not in this loop is the idea of planning. It's like pre the loop, which I disagree with, of course. This is more of an agile thing. But the planning goes back in between reviewing and designing, as you're going to be potentially replanning, designing, developing. Your launch is not a one-time thing. Things will get kicked out as you go to launch. But also continue to think, and we talked about this in the beginning, is how are you going to be tracking that success? What are you going to do? The easy low-hanging fruit there is the metrics, but also feedback can help you as well. the general metrics on feedback. So how's your feedback going? Are people finding success? Are you, when you're soliciting 1 through 5 feedback, where 5 is this is awesome, if you're starting to see 4.55 responses come back as an average from people, these are some really good things. This is what you're looking for, of course. But the staying relevant is also going to be dependent upon your users, so that you can help prioritize what it is that you should be focusing your limited resources on. So, super important. So then on this updating process, now I'm the one who wrote this, your full circle feedback loop. Well, the feedback loop is a circle. What's a full circle in a circle? It's a circle. Don't ask. I just thought it was a fun thing to say, your full circle feedback loop. Which I really want to convey on this is that you want this feedback loop that's always coming full circle, that's going around again and again and again. So what are some ways and approaches to do this? Like, what are some things that we have found the most successful that I'm suggesting you implement as soon as you can? So having some sort of routine surveys that go out to your organization, go out to BUs quarterly, I think is the quickest I would do it. Maybe it's half year, maybe it's yearly. Maybe you do your organization does yearly town hall kind of things where your whole organization gets together remotely, et cetera. Even when you're 10,000 people. Can you send out yearly surveys that you've helped curate, which is talking about the digital workspace tools? Can your organization, will they allow that? But asking people on a routine basis, kind of how things are going back to those like the planning docs, where it's not how are the tools going. That's not going to help you. Asking things such as, do you use these digital tools? How would you, what's your agreement to the statements made below? Asking those continual questions, and maybe it's the same survey that changes only just a little bit quarterly, is going to start to help give you metrics of, are you meeting the mark or not? And I would argue you always want to encourage any of these results, because if things are not going the way you want to know that now so that you can help improve the tools. If your results are getting, the results are better and better on the feedback, of course, that's just more proof to your organization, to your project sponsors, that you're on the right track. And to keep this going, you're helping provide that ROI. So on an immediate thing, creating some sort of suggestion or feedback form directly within the solution is going to help greatly as well. So people can tell like right away when they're using their solution, this is like post-deployment, I have a problem. You want them to not have to go hunting for where to supply that information. You want it easy, so they'll do it right away. Often people that we start organization, we start to see them create specific team channels for this. Maybe they have bots for it. Maybe they have a specific app that everyone in the organization knows is the feedback loop, and that's what they're going to use. I would suggest having some sort of standard operating procedure that will help you deliver the updates and the results into your digital workspaces. And also, again, provide that data back to the people who are providing you feedback. Let people know they're being listened to. It's going to be super important. So kind of like to end this whole feedback loop idea is setting a schedule for how you're going to be working with soliciting feedback, like more forcing the soliciting feedback, getting that updates, setting a schedule for how often you're going to be looking to implement new components, new features of the digital workspace, prioritizing that updates, is all driven by the feedback you're going to get. That's really where it's going to come from. I'm sure there'll be project sponsors or project department heads, et cetera, saying, I need this feature now. And that's going to change some of the prioritization. But if you've got feedback from your users that are helping you drive that, it'll be easier for you to go back and say, okay, I understand your department's important. You really want this thing, but you represent 1% of the organization. 50% of the organization says we need this. Your senior leadership could then take that and help you make some of the tough decisions that maybe politics get in the way of. And don't forget, again, always have that analytics. So one of the things I wanted to show here then on providing ongoing feedback. So let's go ahead and we'll look at another solution here. So we're going to go back to a sample site. Okay, some of you have seen this before with us in our webinars, as well as if you've asked for any demos of what Pixma has to offer, you might have seen this. This is our demo, or a demo tennis we use just to show feature sets of digital workspaces. One of the things that we think is super important, and we added this to the footer, is something such as give us your feedback. You can see this here. Whoops, that did not work as I expected. Let's try that. Nope. Okay, so it's the give us your feedback, this link down at the bottom. So this is in the footer of every single page on this portal per se, and if you click on it, what does it do? It takes you to a form. Why not? It's easy. You see, like, how easy to find information on the Spotlight. And we often like, instead of numbers, more the emotions. Well, I'm angry, or yeah, I love it. This is super cool. Or yeah, that's neutral, like, yeah, whatever. But really what it is here's, I'm having problems finding this thing, or this is a feature that I really want to have. You can start to ask them questions, or maybe you'll create a little more complex of a form, which is, are you trying to provide feedback of a feature missing, or are you looking to provide just general usage feedback, etc.? Because maybe this form is too long. Maybe you just want to ask 1 or 2 questions and help people get off to a longer form, dependent upon the specific kind of question they're asking. But really what I wanted you to take away is providing some sort of mechanism directly in line. As another example, so I'm switching us over to Teams now. So on the Spotlight Teams and Governance team. So this is a team that anybody can join. Let's say it's a public team where everyone can learn about training. And in the General tab, you might have something such as a tab for training feedback, which again goes to a form that says, hey, how's the feedback going here? And it allows people to provide feedback right away so that they can tell you, how is this happening? How is this going? Is it working for them or not? Things like that. You could then, of course, templatize this whole process. So anytime a team was created that uses a specific template, this tab could automatically exist so that users can be taught from the beginning. This is a great way to solicit, to be able to provide feedback for the digital workspace tool that we provided. All right, we're getting very close to the end here. So really what I want to do at this point is just think through for another minute. What did we get? I want you to do your best here to be able to absorb this content, and then we'll spend the last few minutes with any kind of questions you have, and then I know Michael's got some exciting things he wants to be able to share with you. So we looked at this idea of discovering what was necessary in your solution by providing and requesting feedback through the entire life cycle of your solution. And since the life cycle doesn't end, it's constant in the digital workspace nowadays, you're going to need to be constantly asking for that feedback. You need to create successful feedback loops so that you can constantly get more feedback, provide feedback to your feedback, help people feel engaged, and whatnot. And then we looked at the 5 different phases, or 5 different areas within your life cycle that I really want you to think about. Planning, designing, developing. This is kind of like your pre-deployment to deployment. And then we looked at different methodologies of soliciting feedback and getting feedback and utilizing feedback. We also looked at why. So in case you need to ask your project sponsors or those that are controlling your budget as to like why this is important, why do we want to go through the effort to figure this out? I hope that gave you some good tools and some good information as to why it's important. And then through the evergreen process of the through digital workspace, we looked at some training aspects and how to get feedback during training. And then during the overall update, really the whole loop, where we kind of full circle the whole loop, where we have to re-go through planning, designing, developing. How are we able to get more feedback, and how can we utilize that feedback to move forward? So I really hope you enjoyed this. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this back over to Michael. He's going to do some fun stuff here. And then after that, we're going to take your questions. And yeah, we'll close this up.
All righty.
So,
thank you so much, Eric. That was a truly fantastic session. Thank you for such great information. Okay, guys. So if you were part of our webinar last month, you know that we asked you guys who attended to fill out a survey. And if you filled out that survey, it puts you into a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. Well, the time has come to pick a winner. I've sneakily stolen this Pixelmill colored bucket from my 1-year-old son. We've written all the names of the entrants on pieces of paper. And now live, I'm going to pick the winner. Here we go, guys. This is the winner from our July session. Here we go. Got one. Imaginary drum roll. Victoria Andrews is our winner from the July webinar. Victoria, congratulations. We will contact you. I don't know that she's on today's session, but if you are or if you aren't, we'll contact you about that. So there's that. Congratulations, Victoria. Now, we did it once. We're going to do it twice. So this month,
right.
if you've attended, since you are here attending this webinar, we're going to do this again. You see that link up on the screen? That's where you'll be able to enter. You'll fill out a survey about this webinar and about our webinars in general. That will enter you into the raffle for the August webinar. And then we'll announce the winner like we did today live at our September session. So make sure you get that link, get that survey in there so we can announce you as a winner. And we'll get that. Speaking of our September webinar, let me take this time to quickly tell you guys about what's happening in September. So let me actually jump back to 2018. So in 2018, the SharePoint PnP community created this kind of open source project called the SharePoint Starter Kit. The idea was to kind of extend all the out-of-the-box communication sites and things like that. I'm glossing over a lot of the big pieces, and Eric's going to throw something at me as soon as we're done here, but that's kind of the general idea. A lot of into it. It's a very cool community project. Well, recently, they released version 2 of the SharePoint Starter Kit, and wouldn't you know it, the guy next to me in the screen headed the release of version 2. So our September webinar is going to be called How to Get Started with the SharePoint Starter Kit. And it's going to be Eric going through some of those pieces of version 2, talking a little bit about his journey and to getting that up and really going through some of the cool pieces. So you'll learn what the SharePoint Starter Kit is all about and how it got started, like I said, learning some of the common process and how to begin customizing your own solutions. Sorry, guys, I know I'm switching back and forth reading off my notes here to make sure I get these pieces right. We're going to see some live demos that Eric's going to do as well. We're going to show you some real life examples of how to provision using the starter kit, and then we're going to help you learn how to get involved in the PnP community. Guys, it's going to be such an amazing session. Anytime we get to jump back into the dev side of these webinars is always a lot of fun, and I know Eric's really into that one too. So we hope you see you guys at our September webinar for the starter kit. I'll be getting that information up early next week, so we'll hope to see you guys there. With that, that's the end of my little spiel. We can go now, I think, to questions if you are ready for them.
Yeah, so I'm real excited about that. For those of you who know me, I'm an engineer by heart, and I love deving, and so it's been a real pleasure to be able to be a part of the leadership team of that starter kit. And it's all open source community project, and I mean, I'm certainly not taking ownership of it. I've just been blessed to have been asked to help with the leadership of it. It's been fun to help shepherd it. So yeah, I'm excited to go over it. I think it's gonna be really fun because we haven't been able to go in great detail as to the technical side of it and how to extend it, because it's a great extension tool. So yeah, I really do hope you join us on that as well. All right.
All right. So the first question, it looks like Eric did excuse me, Eric did answer this privately, but someone asked if we were going to be able to share the feedback form that Eric had showed. Yes, we'll make sure that's part of the recap. That'll be up early next week, so we'll definitely do that. I also have a question over here. Can you add your own training to learning pathways and customize it to your training?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And that was, it's one of the important things that I like about the Learning Pathways site is it's a SharePoint communication site that is in your tenant, meaning, I mean, you own it. Now it has tools, it has web parts that are pre-deployed that are designed to pull in data from Microsoft, so it's more evergreen content, but you don't even have, you could delete all that if you wanted and just create your own content, but it's an accelerator. And it just helps you get started. Instead of having to create a training site from scratch where you have just a blank canvas, and I personally hate blank canvases. It's just not my thing. You give me just throw some paint on the wall and I can start to figure it out. It's the same idea. It gives you places to start. And then I would highly recommend you do in fact tailor to your organization, because you'll have your own digital tools. You're going to have your own pre-existing training material probably. You'll have your own specific ways of doing things. So, you know, the way you set up Teams or the way you set up your SharePoint portal, you'll want to provide your own screenshots, your own pages, your own content, your own best tricks and helps and things like that. And Learning Pathways is a perfect way to get started. And again, the best way to learn about all that, just Google Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. That's a whole session in and of itself, but you can learn all about it. It is in the sense of all the power behind it, but it's a 5-minute install. It's so simple, and the documentation they provide is really good, and it will get you started right away.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that, Eric. Well, I think that is the extent of our questions for today. You did such a good job. You left them speechless.
Good.
So Eric, thank you so much again for that amazing session. This is really great info, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed your time today. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us. As always, we're here the last Thursday of every month, bringing you quality content from the Microsoft 365 world. Just a reminder, I want to jump back to the survey and the contest real quick. If you have entered before, you can enter again. But like The Price is Right, once you've won, you're out of here. I can. But the whole point being, even if you have entered before, you can enter a second time. So there's that. I just want to put that reminder out there. So make sure you get that out there. Well, I'll make sure that link gets out to all the attendees, so you'll have that chance to enter into that for our August session. Again, congratulations to Victoria Andrews for winning in July. And that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much again for joining us. Hope you guys had some fun today. Like I said, we'll be back in September with that SharePoint Starter Kit session. More info will be up about that soon. The recap for this session will be up early next week. And that's it from us. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of the month as it's almost done. And we'll see you all down the road. Take it easy, everyone.
Bye, all.